What's up everyone, this is CyberKnight 8610, and today of course we have some of the biggest Yu-Gi-Oh news ever for this year. And yeah, it looks like we have a new summoning method. As you guys will see in this video, we're going to talk about it, and it's called a Link Summon. So that's kind of an interesting name. Anyway, I'm using the Yu-Gi-Oh organization's website, which I'll have a link in the description to all of this if you guys want to check it out for yourself. They pretty much talk about this new form of summoning the best over anyone else, and so I want to give them a shout out on that, and also use their website for this because this is a little bit confusing. I know whenever we always have like a new form of summoning, it always gets really confusing for a lot of people, including myself, so this will be very helpful to us. So anyway, what all has changed in this? Well, first off, the rules for the extra deck have changed. We have this new form of summoning, of course, and then also even the pendulum zones have changed where they are too, so a lot of new, I feel like, strategy actually to this, dare I say that? So let's go on ahead and talk about the new card, which is Decode Talker. This is the main character's signature card. He's one of these Link Summon monsters, so we're going to look at a better picture of him. There we go. And then after that, we're just going to go through the rules and changes and everything. So here we go. First off, this is Decode Talker. As you can see, the new Link Summon monsters, they have sort of a blue color to them, which I'm kind of surprised. I mean, we already have rituals, so that's kind of interesting. But yeah, it has like a scale sort of honeycomb pattern, I guess, really, on the kind of behind them right there. They don't have a level or rank, so that's kind of interesting. And they have like these like arrows right there, as you can see. Also, too, Link monsters don't have defense points, is another thing that's kind of interesting. We're going to have more info on that, I think, as we go. And instead, they have, like, their Link score. Like, this one has a Link of 3. So that's kind of interesting, too. And like I said, they can only supposedly be in attack mode. So, again, I find that kind of interesting. So maybe you can't be defensive with them in the future. Not really sure. But yeah, anyway, let's go on ahead and go back where we have all the info. There we go. Decode Talker is a dark cybers type Link effect monster. So yeah, cyber type. You know what? That's actually really cool. I have my own type of Yu-Gi-Oh cards now. We have, of course, he's a Link of 3, attack 2,300. You guys saw that. It requires 2 or more effect monsters for its materials, evidently. And its effect is this card gains 500 type for each monster linked to it. When an opponent's card effect that targets a card you control is activated, you contribute one of your monsters linked to this card and negate the activation. If you do, destroy it. So, yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty interesting. This is kind of, I don't know, I know everyone's making this comparison, but it kind of reminds me of a Utopia, basically, for this type of summoning. That's what it really reminds me of, not even just in terms of the artwork. And it looks like it's going to be a pretty good card. I feel like a lot of people are going to be using this one because it sounds like it's actually pretty easy to summon, or if I understand these rules right. So, anyway, let's go on ahead and talk about Link summoning and everything. We're just going to go through and read off everything. So, here we go. Look at those distinctive Link markers. Use those markers to develop new strategies that goes into your extra deck. So, those Link markers, I believe, are those arrows that we saw that are under the picture. So evidently that's where you have to link the monsters to it. I guess you would link 2 effect monsters for Decode Talker in this case to that. So they actually have to be, if you're going to see, actually, let's go on ahead and kind of skip over to the new playmat. Decode Talker's right here. And then your effect monsters would, I guess, technically be here. So that's how that would supposedly work to actually link to it. As you can also see, here are these new link zones, and they're owned by both players. And then, as you can see, the pendulum zones aren't like off by themselves anymore. They're right here in your spell and trap zones. Evidently, these spell and trap zones are going to technically always be spell and trap zones, you know, so you don't, you know, it's not just a pendulum zone anymore. So you could have, let's say, 5 face-down traps if you want to, or spells or whatever. That won't matter. But it only becomes a pendulum zone when a pendulum monster is in it. So that's the change. So I guess basically they're making it so decks out there that use pendulum monsters can't like have can't really spam a bunch of spells and traps in those zones. So they're basically effectively losing 2 of their zones in that. So I guess that's kind of a nerf to pendulums in a way, and honestly, I guess it kind of makes sense. But yeah, I mean, it still functions the same way if you're not using pendulums, but if you happen to use a pendulum monster, then it will actually become a pendulum zone. So yeah, other than that, pendulums still work the same. And like I said, the other big change is, of course, this new extra deck zone, which I'm still not 100% how all this works, but we're going to read through it and try to learn together, I guess, is how this is going to go. So let's see. There are 2 ways of link summoning. Send materials to the grave equal to the link number. You can link summon something from your extra deck by sending the same number of monsters that meet the material requirements written on the card's effect box, whose total number is equal to the link number from the field to the graveyard. So that kind of reminds me of like synchro summoning or something. You're adding up the link number to actually go for that link monster. So that's kind of interesting. Decrease the materials by using link monsters. Link monsters are treated as the same number of materials as a link number. However, use them, you must match the requirements written on the card. So supposedly we're going to have these new types of monsters that are called link monsters. They can help you link summon, I guess, faster is the best way to put it. So you could use any monster out there. You can use, you know, I don't know, an elemental hero, whatever, it doesn't really matter. You can use any monster to help you go for the link summon, you know, a couple of effect monsters. Like it says here, you can use 3 effect monsters, in the case of Decode Talker, to actually bring him out. Or you could end up using one link 2 effect monster and 1 effect monster. So they kind of help you skip over using additional monsters. So if you want, you can use multiple of an effect monster, from what I understand, like 3 in this case. Or you can use 1 effect monster, and then one of these link monsters that have the link of 2. And they'll actually say a link of 2 on them. So you can kind of skip over some of this, and I'm sure we could have, you know, more links in the future on this. So that's kind of interesting. Kind of skip over how many you're going to use. You don't have to like spam the field with them, but you can actually use some of these new link monsters to kind of go for these stronger monsters a little bit quicker, I guess. So that's pretty interesting. Also, pay attention to the direction of the link markers. Zones pointed to each link marker, and the cards in them will be affected by a link monster, and this will create new strategies. They have no defense. Link monsters have no defense points, and they have the special characteristics of being unable to change their battle positions or turning to defense position by effects. So they are unaffected by anything that can send them to defense mode, and they just don't go to defense mode. Plain and simple. I guess they don't back down, is basically what they're saying. That's kind of interesting. I'm wondering in the future, maybe we could see some that are somehow more defensive, like maybe their attack counts as defense, like super heavies or something. I don't know. That could be, you know, interesting to see in the future what could change on that. Again, we have like our picture of how everything works on this. So evidently, there's going to be more strategy in where you place your monsters with this is going to be the big thing. So there are certain zones you might want to have on these new extra monster zones is what they're officially called. And you might want, I guess, either the left one or the right one. I guess it could work to your advantage, either one. And basically where you place your monsters, where you summon them, even where in your regular monster zones, this is going to have a big effect on the game. So I guess, again, like I said, a little bit more strategy involved. Dare I say that? I know some people don't like it when you say strategy in Yu-Gi-Oh, but it looks like they're trying to add a little bit more strategy to things. Let's see, the newly created extra monster zone. When a duel begins, neither extra monster zone is considered to belong to a specific player. When a player special summons a monster in one of them, that zone becomes treated as part of that player's field, and the other then becomes treated as the other player's field. Okay, so you do choose. Okay, I was wondering that, could you take both or what? So evidently you do choose which one. The tactics of the duel will change drastically depending on who can grab the extra monster zone first. So there could be in certain cases where you might want one over the other. An extra deck monster can only be summoned to the extra monster zone. But if you summon a link monster to one of the extra monster zone, you can utilize it to the max potential. So of course, any form of summoning that comes from the extra deck, that means Fusion, Synchros, Xyz, Link, cannot be summoned to the main monster zones anymore. So of course, it looks like you can go for any extra deck summoning to go in this extra monster zone, but of course Link summoning is the best spot for it. So they're not really just making it a specific zone for Link monsters. You can go for others, but it just works better if you use the Link monsters. So what has been the monster zone up till now is now the main monster zone. Evidently it's the name of it now. And the Pendulum zone to the left and right of the spell and trap card zone can now be used to have, it is used as a spell and trap zone. So like I said already, you know, these zones can be used to just have face-down spells and traps now. It's not just a Pendulum zone. We already went over that and discussed it. Like I said, that's actually a big change for decks out there that use Pendulum summoning. That's definitely going to be something they're going to have to get around and understand how that's going to work. The zones pointed by the Link monsters can be used to bring out extra deck monsters. So evidently when you have a Link monster, that's going to be the big change, is that's going to point where you can go for you know, different monsters from the extra deck. For example, we have a Link monster right here. It is in the new zone, and then the arrows that are pointing down can be where you can actually bring out other extra deck monsters. So I guess that's the reason there's a Dark Rebellion. You can actually use that zone to Xyz summon. You couldn't use the other ones, but you can use that one. And of course this other one too, where Egghead Cannon is. So again, you have to be a little bit more strategic where you place your monsters. You're going to have to really pay attention to what you're going to do on that. So you can only bring them out in those zones. So although extra deck monsters can only be summoned to the extra deck zone normally, if you have a Link monster in the extra deck zone, the zones pointed by their Link monsters can be used to summon extra deck monsters. So if you get a Link summon quickly, you can bring out Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz monsters in succession. Of course, you can summon other Link monster in one of those zones too. So that's also very interesting. So if you play your cards right, you can fill your entire main monster zone with extra deck monsters, the new metagame will require careful consideration where to place monsters. So like I said, you're going to be very careful where you place everything, and man, that's really interesting. All right, so let's go ahead and go through these questions too that they have real quick. That should answer a lot of questions you guys may have. Is special summon an extra deck monster normally, and it goes to the graveyard, and I want to special summon it with Monster Reborn, what zone does it go to? It goes to the main monster zone, evidently, not the extra monster zone. So it will just go in the regular zones that we've had forever, not the new zone. So that's pretty cool. Can you use Book of Moon on Link monsters? Link monsters cannot be face down, so you cannot target them with Book of Moon. So I guess different spell cards that you have, or monsters in general, or anything that tries to target a Link monster and send it to defense mode, it just won't work on them. Plain and simple. Whether it be face down, defense, anything like that, I guess none of those types of effects will work on it. So yeah, that's kind of cool. If your opponent's only monster is in their extra monster zone, can you attack them directly? If there's a monster in extra monster zone, unless some kind of effect is in play, you would have to attack that monster first. So it still protects them. Doesn't matter, it still counts as a monster zone. Not really confused on that. You just have to make sure they don't have any monsters in their side of the field to attack them. You know, same difference on it. Just think of it like that, really. Can you destroy 2 set spell trap zones in the leftmost and rightmost spell trap card zones with Wavering Eyes? The leftmost and rightmost spell and trap zones are regular spell and trap zones, and do not become pendulum zones unless you have pendulum card in them, or a pendulum card is placed in them by a card effect. A spell and trap zone in either of those zones cannot be destroyed by Wavering Eyes. So you can't use Wavering Eyes to just destroy spells and traps that they have. When a pendulum monster is in it, it's a pendulum zone. No exceptions, really, on that. Otherwise, they are just normal spell and trap card zones. So in the end, what do I think about this new summoning mechanic, you know, new rules in general, and is it going to kill Yu-Gi-Oh? Because I know people are going to ask that, and a lot of people are going to be freaking out over this. No, I don't think it's going to kill Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot of people are kind of freaking out on this, as they have with Exceed monsters, pendulums, synchros, and everything too. Remember all those people that did that? They're probably going to do that on this too. The game has to change. Unfortunately, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that in a lot of ways because, in all honesty, like I said in one of my previous videos, I wish they didn't have a new form of summoning for this one. I honestly don't, you know, so I can't say that I'm, you know, really crazy about the new rules, but also the game has to evolve. We have to get over that. You know, it has to change, and there's going to be new rules to it. So I'm going to accept it and move on. The new rules, though, do seem pretty cool. It looks like they've kind of tamed down certain things, like they're trying to slow down the game, and I think that's really good. There's actually a little bit more strategy involved in where you place your monsters. I like that. And you can't just go crazy like you used to. So I feel like they're actually, you know, these rule changes are smart. I feel like even though they might be a little confusing at the beginning, I feel like they're going to make sense to us, you know, within, you know, a couple of duels, they're going to make perfect sense. It's nothing too out there, and you know, I know a lot of you guys are feeling overwhelmed by this right now, as I did when I first woke up and heard all this, but really this is going to end up being old hat to us. It's going to end up being like Exceed summoning, synchros, pendulums. Just remember how you felt when those new form summoning were announced? Yeah, it's not going to be overwhelming after a few duels. You're going to see how this works, and it's just going to be just like any form of summoning. The same with these rule changes and everything. It's going to be like it's been around for forever. So honestly, that's how I feel about it. It's not going to kill the game. The game has to change. I mean, it happens with Magic the Gathering, happens with Pokemon. I mean, they got their new GX cards for Pokemon, and you know, these changes are going to happen. Whether you like them or not, it has to make the game evolve and make it seem fresh. And yeah, hopefully I explained everything really well. I have all the info in the description, and if you have any questions, maybe we can all help each other out and answer those. So as always, thank you guys for watching, and of course I will catch you guys later. See ya.